Dear everyone, I'm very happy to welcome you to our very unusual and I hope that it will be very interesting webinar about Cyprus. And what makes today's webinar so special? For me, what is special is actually you were the co-creators of these webinar, because today we decided to base everything on your questions. And I am extremely happy and pleased that we received so many questions. Some of them are easy, some of them are not so easy, but we actually put in our today's session all the questions that we received. And today in the morning, we kept receiving the questions, which will be added to our chat a little bit later. So thank you very much for being such an active audience. And if you can start being even more active, I will be very grateful if when you hear the questions that you asked, you will put in the comments that, yes, that was my question, I got my answer. Or maybe if you have more questions during my presentation, I will also be very, very happy. And hi, everyone. I hope that there are some people that we already know. I know that we have lots of people who come to the webinars regularly or who are already in touch with our team. And I'm always very happy about it and very grateful. Today, I am actually doing my webinar from beautiful Limassol. You see, the sun is shining in Cyprus and it's just absolutely wonderful. And I hope that if you're not in Cyprus, I will manage to convey a little bit of beauty, a little bit of interest to our beautiful island. So you will decide to come to our island. So before we start, I always ask this question because it makes me very curious. Where are you listening from? Are you already in Cyprus or are you only planning to come? And I can already see that we have some people from South Africa, we have from the UK, from Limassol, from Australia. Oh my God, we have from Australia, from Cyprus, from Denmark. You know, this little questionnaire that I do in the beginning of webinar, Dublin, Switzerland, for me, it shows that our little island has amazing appeal. And of course, I am a huge fan of Cyprus. In fact, like for those of, I'm talking to you like I know you, but let me first of all introduce myself. So my name is Anastasia Yianni, and I'm the CEO and partner of Cyprus Sotheby's International Realty. And actually, when we were doing advertising for this webinar, there was one comment in the social media saying like, how can a foreigner speak about lifestyle of Cyprus? Yes, I am a foreigner, but I feel so Cypriot because I've been living in Cyprus for the last 24 years actually, and 23 years I'm working in Cyprus real estate. I love Cyprus from professional point of view. My children were born here. In fact, yesterday my older son went to Cyprus Army. So I do believe that I have enough knowledge, expertise, and passion to talk about Cyprus lifestyle, and my professional expertise of working for the last 23 years in Cyprus real estate, I believe gives me enough credibility to talk about it as well. I am, as I mentioned, I'm the CEO and partner of Cyprus Sotheby's International Realty, which is part of the global network, which again gives us a little edge because we do not just compare ourselves only with Cyprus market. We are part of the global network, so we understand that when you're in Switzerland, when you're in Dublin, when you're in Australia, There are so many other beautiful countries and beautiful locations. So our team has the local knowledge and the global perspective as well. We are fully licensed real estate brokerage with offices and presence all over Cyprus, Paphos, Limassol, Larnaca, Ayanape, and Nicosia. We work with developers and with private sellers, and we are very multilingual and very multinational, which again adds up. So again, I'm so happy and so grateful that we actually, this idea to make a live Q&A session where you had a chance to send your questions really worked. And we received lots of questions, and we broke them or grouped them into different categories because there were lots of questions that fit in the same categories. So today we will cover lifestyle, we will cover property investment, we will cover immigration issues, taxes, and many more. And everything is about the questions. And let's start with the questions that actually we are asked very often. And that's why it's no wonder that we received lots of questions about buyer's protection in Cyprus. Okay, so lots of you, if you're thinking about buying property in Cyprus or moving to Cyprus or are already in Cyprus, I'm sure that you're checking what are the articles, what are the publications, what are the risks connected with purchasing property in Cyprus. And of course, there is a question about what happens if I buy new built properties. What is my protection? And in Cyprus, to be completely honest, the value and the volume of sales of new properties is very large. In fact, even in our agency, majority of sales are with new build. There are many reasons for that. There are lots of things, and today it's not the point of my discussion. But of course, the question of buying new properties, which are even off plan, it's a big question. So, what are my guarantees that the developer will complete the project and I will not lose the contracted amount without receiving the finished property? To answer that, I would say that, of course, there are several things that you need to consider. And there is legal protection, but also just the points how to protect yourself when you are buying the property. One protection from the government is the so-called specific performance, which means that when you sign the contract of sale, it has to be registered in the land registry. Land registry, sometimes it's called land department, but this is the government structure that registers all the transactions that happens in Cyprus real estate market, whether it's a resale property or a new build. And when the government registers the property, first of all, of course, it checks that the seller has the right to sell and that the buyer understands what he is buying. So that's why for the contract of sale, they have special requirements. They check all the documents, they check the permits, and only after that, the contract is registered in the land registry. And after that, in a way, government confirms that this contract has been registered, and we know that there is a commitment to finish the property. And if it happens very well, in my history, I know maybe one or two projects that happened like that. So if for some reason the developer doesn't complete, there is a legal instrument when it's possible to appoint a different company that will finish the property. So this is the legal part. Now, let's go to the practical and financial matters. What is very important that when you buy off-plan property, the practice in Cyprus is that you never pay full amount upfront. You pay in stages, and stages are connected to the construction progress. So you only pay your next installment if the stage of construction is done. So there is another layer of financial protection. Of course, when you engage professional real estate agents, this is our job to protect your interest. So when we start working, and I can only talk about ourselves, when we start working with developers, we always make very thorough due diligence process. And we always check the permits. We always check the reputation of the developer, the track record of developer. We would always cover if there is anything that we find if it's very red flags, we wouldn't recommend to proceed with these transactions. And in fact, if there are lots of red flags, we as a company, we wouldn't even show you that property. But if it's like just some points of consideration, we would always cover it in the sale agreement. Okay, so these are the things. So number one, registration in the land registry. Number two, payment in stages. Number three, work with reputable advisors and reputable developers. Okay, so this is number one. The second question, are there bank guarantees in Cyprus to protect investors from unscrupulous developers? Are there escrow accounts? In all honesty, because now the construction of new build is always done in stages, there very rarely such instrument as bank guarantees is used. In the past, when there were lots of transactions done upfront, this was more widely used when the bank would keep the money, would hold the money, and would only release the payment based on the construction. Now, when there is no upfront payment, you don't use it. In Cyprus, there are no escrow accounts. There is such a thing as client's account of the legal companies, so they can hold your money, but still it's only temporary. And when you buy new built property and the payment is in stages, it's not used. The client's account of the legal companies is used quite often when you buy resale property. Because again, if you buy resale property, you need to send money to Cyprus. And in most cases, clients don't sell money to the personal accounts of the seller. They send it to the client's account of the legal representative, either on buyer side, on seller side. And then on the day of the transfer of the property, the legal representative comes with a banker's draft. So this is the closest equivalent. How are the contracts of sale registered? I touched it a little bit. So the process is, when you finalize your sale agreement, the first thing that this sale agreement will be stamped. There is a government stamp, and you will pay your stamp duty. And after that, you register the contract in the land registry. And it cannot be one property, can only have one registration. So it's not possible that the same property is sold twice, because in the land registry, they are very thorough. So it's not possible that a person who doesn't own the property is registering the contract. So it's quite good. And in fact, when I studied for my license exam, we even covered like the history of the land registry. And this is the heritage that we inherited, from the Great Britain. And the land registry in Cyprus is one of the most organized and one of the best. Next, what if the developer delays construction and does not deliver the project on time? Okay, this happens. And of course, in every contract of sale in Cyprus, or at least when we deal with this property, we would always put the protection clause. So one, you would always have force majeure clause, and there it's written what are the circumstances where the property can be delayed. Have in mind that in Cyprus, you can get delayed sometimes because of the hot weather. Or when COVID was, there were delays, but all the justified delays have to be supported by official documents. So let's say if there was a delay of because of harsh weather, the developer should always have the letters and instructions from the Ministry of Labor that doesn't allow for the certain days to work. So this is one part. But the second part, if there is delay in construction, and I will only be telling you what is by law and also what is in practice, things that you need to remember. So in practice, most developers would ask for 1 or 2 months grace period, which is without any penalties. And if there is a delay after that period, then the developer has to pay penalty. And the penalty can either be described from the very beginning in the contract of sale, or you can just go with legal provisions. The penalty is normally equivalent for the rental income that you would have received or for the rent that you would have paid for the similar accommodation. So just have it in mind. Okay, so this was our first thing. Let's see. Okay, there is a question for land registries, yes, behind, not as you have just stated. I think that's a combination. I think it's some procedures are definitely yes behind, but from the point of the buyers and sellers protection is very good. So here, tell me if you agree to that point, that protection of buyers sellers is there, but some procedures are quite archaic. Like, in Cyprus Land Registry, you still need to have physical presence at the point of the transfer. It can be either buyer and seller, or it can be representatives, but still it has to be physical presence. Or another thing, let's say, which could be considered archaic, you cannot do the transfer of the tax. It has always have to be paid, let's say, transfer fees. It has always have to be paid either in cash or in Visa, but it cannot be check or the bank transfer. Okay. Next question. After the developer has completed all okay, why does it take 10-15 years to get your title deeds? Because you cannot sell without title deeds. Mr. Peter, here I will break your question into two. Okay, so the first one is about whether you can sell or not, or cannot sell without title deeds. There is no prohibition to sell without title deeds, but of course it's much more difficult, and the person who is buying or the agency that is representing you have to do much more due diligence, because we need to understand why there are no title deeds. And now it doesn't really take 10-15 years. The new properties, they are moving a bit faster because they have less violations. The properties that takes 10-15 years, in many cases, unfortunately, and this is sort of part of the story of Cyprus real estate, unfortunately, there were lots of cases where the properties were built not in according to the planning and building permit. They were built with violations, or developer didn't pay his mortgage, which is also the something that stops the title deeds from issuing. So now the period is much faster. and there is more protection for the new buyers. You know, when I just started working in real estate many years ago, it was not even a common practice to disclose on part of developer the loans that exist on property. Now it's obligatory. When you buy the property, every developer will have to state if there is any mortgage, and also now all the lawyers will put an obligation that when the property is purchased, the bank is releasing that particular property from any existing mortgages, and the bank waiver is submitted. Okay, so let me see. The question from Paul, Mr. Paul, it is one of my main concerns though, as if majority buy new build, which seems to be a fact, then seems very hard to sell a resale should you need for any reason. No. As an agency, we are working both with new builds and resales, and there are lots of people who are looking for completed properties. Of course, the new build, they have some advantages, and they also have some advantages even for, they have sort of wider range of buyers, because later we will be talking with you about immigration, and there is one immigration permit in Cyprus that is connected with the purchase of new build property. So yes, there are lots of buyers who need to buy new build property. For resales though, if the resale is priced well, the demand is quite high. And we now this year putting more emphasis on resales as well, because we can see demand. So if your property is clean, meaning all your documents are good, if the property is in good location, good developer, if it's priced well, and if it's marketed by professional agents, then I wouldn't see the problem with selling. Okay, so let's see. Okay. The other issue is actually getting a good feel, independent view of fair price. Here we can look on land registry, etc. But as far as I know, in Cyprus, that's not the case. So for professional valuers and licensed real estate agents, we have access to real estate data. So we can make a comparative analysis of similar sales in your area to give you, we call it the agent's opinion of fair price. So yes, this information is not public data, but the licensed real estate agents have access, and we can have a good view. Of course, we need to remember that in certain cases, we just do not have enough comparison. So here we need to go with our market analysis in general, because sometimes the property can be a very niche property, or it can be in the location where we do not have many active sales. So it would be difficult to compare. So that's why, again, all our agents are trained to give advice on the value. And also we have in our database all new properties. So we can always tell you, look, this is what the new developments sell. This is what the resales, or not sold, advertised. This is what other resales in your area are advertised. Here we have data from land registry. So it does help with a better understanding. Okay, I think that I will go to the next. Let me just answer the question from Miss Maria. How long does it take to get title deeds for new property? It depends on the region. In some cases, we had cases, let's say in Limassol, when the properties got title deeds after about 2-3 years after completion, which in Cyprus, it is considered fast. Mind you, this year there was announcement that there will be new procedures and more staff is being employed by the government to actually speed up the title deeds. Okay, and you always have the, we always say that you can leave a small percentage, and it is a very small percentage, but you can leave a small percentage in your contract for that you will pay on the issue of title deeds. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next block is connected to rent. Because, of course, we understand and we know that there are lots of people who are buying not only for personal use, but they also, if let's say they buy for as holiday home, they want to rent it when they are not using it. Or now we have lots of people who want to buy and get rental income. We know that now the financial markets are crazy. We know that there is so much high volatility, so lots of people prefer to invest in bricks and mortar. So that's why we have lots of questions about rent. What is the most profitable rental? Long-term or short-term? That's slightly tricky, because if your property is managed very well short-term, then you have a chance to get more income. But short-term, it requires much more maintenance, meaning that you need to, either your company, the management company, has to be very good to fill the property. The usage and the repair and wear and tear of the short-term accommodation is also quite high. And in the last few years, we actually had increase in the rental values for the long term. So last year, if the question was last year and the year before, I would say that long-term and short-term return-wise are almost the same. Now, the long-term rent, we can see the tendency of slight reduction, not big, slight reduction. So if either you are doing it yourself, then short-term could bring more. But if you want something easy, then long-term. And the difference will not be very much. The difference will be around maybe 2% between the long-term and short-term. Next question. Who does property management in Cyprus, and how much does it cost? If you mean by property management the companies that rent your property and manage your property, then the rates are quite straightforward. So who is doing it? There are dedicated property management companies who deal with property management and with rentals. Property management, if we're talking about maintenance of the swimming pool and the common areas, if you own apartment or property on a project, you have to pay your common expenses, and you have to pay these to the property management company. It depends on the size and type of your property, and roughly we can say that it can be from 50-60 euros per month to thousands and more if you bought in the luxury tower with concierge service and you have so many services. If we're talking about rentals, then if the normal practice, the companies that will manage your property for short-term rental, they will do all the property management, and they take, again, depending on what they're doing, roughly from 20 to 40% of the rental income. So this is, again, like the general answer. Next, very easy, not easy, but interesting question. What should I do if the tenant stops paying rent? How can I evict him? Okay, again, I will tell you from the legal point of view and from the practical point of view. Okay, what happens? So from the legal point of view, if the tenant stops paying rent, then you have a remedy. You can go to the court and wait for the eviction order. Unfortunately, it can take very long time. So unless and again, In our practice, we didn't have many of such cases. In most cases, the tenant and the landlord would find the solution. But sometimes the modern landowners, they wouldn't transfer all the utility bills to the tenant. So let's say they would transfer electricity, but they will not transfer water. So at least they will have some leverage, so to say. Next, can I rent vacation home to tourists? Do I need license? By all means, you need to register your property. If you want to register rent property on Airbnb and short term, you need to register your property in the special registry. Unfortunately, not all the properties are registered, and I think now the tax authorities are doing more to find and chase these properties. So yes, if you want to rent the property Airbnb, you absolutely have to register the property. About the rental in general, there is a little bit of gray area in Cyprus, and it concerns the rentals by third country nationals. So like, strictly speaking, you cannot do it, but everyone is doing it. And my main thing is that the registry in Cyprus accept property registrations for the Airbnb, even from non-European countries. So hence, in practice, it means that de facto, it is possible. And government strategy and regulation, to be honest, I haven't read the full strategy, but regulation is that you have to register your property and you have to pay taxes on your rental income. Okay. Next, actually, because I always try to finish strictly, not to overpower, and it's already half an hour, so I will speed up. So next questions were about loans. Is it possible to obtain property finance from Cypriot banks? Just to be sure, when I was preparing for our webinar, I was talking to our mortgage advisor and consultant who is dealing with our clients when they want to get mortgages, because things change. And I got confirmation that yes, even for foreigners, even for foreigners not working in Cyprus, it is possible to obtain property financing. The current rates are between 4 to 6%, depending on the banks and depending on the type of loan. The maximum and absolute maximum that the banks would give you a loan would be 70%, but mainly they prefer to do 50-60%. The duration of the loans now is maximum 25 years or until you are 65, whichever comes sooner. And it all depends on your individual case. So even if you are like now the second question, how can I get a mortgage if I have UK salary, but I'm also eligible to live in the EU with a national identity card from Spain? Or next question, banks in Cyprus that offer mortgage to foreigners. So the banks will consider each case individually, and they will make decision based on your earning capacity and the security of your earning capacity. They're very careful because Cyprus already had bank crisis. I mean, long time ago, not recently, but we had lots of non-performing loans. So of course, banks are now careful, very careful. But the good news, this is happening. And Mr. Vadim, I think that if you mean the rate on loans, it's 4 to 6%. Okay, let's move to the next one. So, lifestyle. I'm interested to discover what makes Cyprus a tourist destination and Europe and the world. You know, by the way, because I still want to cover, I still have a blog on expenses, legal fees, taxes, and immigration issues. So if there is a topic that I read questions and it's not really interested, you can just say like, let's move on, or just say plus that I want that we want to find out more. Okay, so I'm interested to discover what makes Cyprus a tourist destination and the world, the natural surroundings of the country, and a question about Paphos, but I will cover in general. You know what? I think that the first picture that I showed you, I think this is small illustration what makes it interesting. But indeed, Cyprus is really attractive tourist destination. And being such a small country, there are so many things to do. And the food is amazing. The sea is fantastic. It's very safe, but you know, like I still go to the, you can read, I'm not going to read these interesting facts, but actually there are lots of interesting facts about Cyprus, which makes tourist destination amazing. We have cleanest sea. We have very hospitable locals. We have lots of things to see. We have mountains. We have architectural heritage. We have excellent restaurants. We have really good shopping now. There are lots of things for kids. There are lots of historical and archaeological. It has a religious background, like for example, in Paphos, the whole Paphos city, the whole Paphos area is considered a UNESCO heritage site. So when you come as a family, there will be something to do for everyone. For older generation, for younger generation, you can play golf, you can go horse riding, you can go mountain climbing. In winter, you can ski. So there are so many things. But I will concentrate a little bit about on the lifestyle advantages, just some points. So Cyprus is still one of the safest countries in the world. And yes, there was a question about Hezbollah, and I will comment on it. But if we take out of it everyday life, it's one of the safest, smallest countries in the world, and one of the safest countries in general. We have good quality education, lots of lifestyle opportunities, excellent infrastructure, very good tax system. We do not have any heavy industry, so there is no pollution. So you can breathe freely. Weather is amazing, and you know the sun vitamin makes you happier. So when you have 340 sunny days per year, your life becomes happier. Excellent healthcare, very important, you know, and it's true. And look, I am a foreigner myself. I've never, ever felt unwelcome in Cyprus. So the Cypriots, they are very warm and very hospitable people. Global connection, so even though it's an island, it's very easy to fly everywhere. British law-based legal system, English language widely spoken, but not only English. There are lots of languages that are widely spoken. But let me go to the question that I think that was another. Political stability, you know, I promised that I will answer not only the questions that are easy and makes everything positive, I will be answering all the questions, even if they are uncomfortable. So if we're talking political stability, Cyprus is a stable country. We have several parties that sort of rotate in power. We had financial crises like the rest of the world, but politically, I see the country as very stable. If we're talking about terror risk and Hezbollah, I think that no country in the world can guarantee that nothing will happen, but I can tell you that there are a lot of things that protect us in a way. And one thing, that Cyprus is part of European Union. It's not just a small island that anyone can do something and there will be no consequences. Cyprus is part of European Union. So if, God forbid, and I hope it will never happen, if something happens, it will be against the European Union and not just the small island. For the recent comments, my personal opinion that it was more words. But again, no one, unfortunately, we live in the time when nothing is guaranteed, but we have good protection. I believe I feel protected. We have British military bases in Cyprus as well, which in my opinion add some protection. But the most important thing is that we are part of European Union. And I believe that this is, again, my personal opinion, that this makes us more protected. If we look at the other questions that all people ask, if we go about the health, about lifestyle, healthcare is a very important part. And in Cyprus, the healthcare is on very good level, especially after introduction of national health insurance scheme. Of course, we have to pay in taxes, and if you rent your property short term, you will need to pay taxes as well, and part of the tax is this national health tax that you're paying. But it's amazing. You have a family doctor, you have access to all the hospital, public and private clinics, and the level is very good because in Cyprus there are lots of doctors. You know, we found these statistics that in Cyprus there are only 245 people per doctor. It's nothing. You know, like you do not need to wait in queues if you need to do operation and if you need to see a doctor. It's actually quite fast. There are lots of English speaking professionals, and again, not only English. You can find other languages as well, so it makes it really comfortable. But of course, if you are not eligible to be part of national health insurance scheme, then you have options to visit private clinics. And there are lots of medical insurance companies as well. So you have access to all the facilities as well. If we touch quickly education, because Cyprus is quite a family country and it's perfect. Okay, I'm a mother of two boys, and I think that it's an amazing country to grow your kids, safe, excellent quality of education. So lots of options, lots of possibilities to study further. So in Cyprus, you can either have free education in Cyprus Public School, which is in Greek, and it's open for everyone, regardless of nationality. And there are also lots of international schools, lots of schools that work with English curriculum, and the prices are between 3,000 to up to 10,000, if depending on the year, on the age of your child. There was a question about PAFAs and universities, and yes, there is a strategy of government to make Cyprus the educational center or center for higher education in the Mediterranean. And that's why we have many universities, and why I believe that PAFAS was mentioned, because just recently an American University of Beirut was completed and is being opened in PAFAS, and there will be more student population. So this part of population is growing. Okay, now we are swiftly moving to taxes, expenses, finances. And you know, I think I will go fast, but I've done a very detailed webinar about all the costs of purchasing property in Cyprus. So if you are interested, you can leave in the chat that yes, that would be something of interest, and we will share with you presentation. But now, while I'm having a little bit of water, I will be very happy if you just say like yes or plus if what I'm saying is interesting. Thank you. Okay, so let's move. Thank you very much. And let's move to the next part, taxes, expenses, finances. So here the general things were about let's start first with the cost of running property and buying property. So in fact, if we structure everything, then of course we all understand that the real expensive, they will vary depending on the type of property, the location, the specific area, etc. But every property would have property price. If you're buying resale property, you will have transfer fees. If you buy new property, you will have VAT. There will be legal fees. If you're going to obtain the loan, you will need to do property valuation. There will be stamp duty, mortgage fees if you are buying with a loan. And just to give you a quick idea and quick thing, that the purchase price is very clear, is what you agree to buy. Property transfer fees, if you buy resale property that has title deeds, then when you buy property, you will need to pay transfer fee to the government. If you bought the property that was new, there are no title deeds, it's zero because you paid VAT. But if it's resale, then there is a scale. The first 85,000 is 3%, from 85 to 170 is 5%, and what is above is 5%. But we have permanent discount, so whatever you calculated, you need to divide by 2. Okay, so it's you calculate it and then you will only pay 50%. If you buy the property 2 people or 3 owners, then each of you calculate transfer fees by each share. And again, if we are doing with you the transaction, we will provide you all these information. Stamp duty, this is remember when I was talking about the protection, buyer's protection, and there was a stage when you need to register the property in the land registry, you get the stamp duty, and the cost is the first 170 is 0.15%, and above is 0.2%. Okay, and then there are utilities and connection fees. Okay. Yes, there was a question about legal fees. By legal fees, we mean the legal support if you hire a local solicitor, and we would always recommend to support you in the deal. The rate again, it depends on from company to company, but generally it's around 1%. And also in some companies, there are in-house legal advisors who can assist you. So there is no extra fee. So that's, again, have in mind. All new properties are subject to VAT, and some ready properties are also subject to VAT, but I will not go there. Again, if you want to find out everything about VAT, request my advanced webinar that I've done for the VAT, or I just remembered, do you see this red button above the presentation? You can always book your free consultation with our experts, and they will explain to you in details. But the VAT in Cyprus is 19%, but if you buy for your personal use, and this is the property that you will be using when you're in Cyprus and you're not going to rent it, it's not an investment property, you do not perform any economic activity, subject to terms and conditions, you can pay only 5%, and not 19%. But again, it's a huge subject, and I just have no time to cover it during this webinar. When you bought a property, the property cost money to run. So you need to understand what will be your recurring expenses. In Cyprus, there is no property tax, but you have local municipality tax, and sometimes it's called property tax, but it's not. It is local municipality taxes, and it includes also the garbage collection, street lighting, local amenities, support of the functioning of the local municipality, etc. If your property is part of development with shared facilities, let's say you have swimming pool, garden, security, you will have to. It's not that here we say that you may be required. No, it's a law. In Cyprus, there is a law on common facilities, and actually now we hope that they will improve it because it's very difficult and not really functioning. But if you have a property that is part of a development, you will have to pay your share towards the management and maintenance of these facilities, regardless whether you use it or you don't use it. And also, it is calculated by the size of the property. It's not calculated by how many people are using it. It's calculated by the size of the property. Insurance. Here we say that it's advisable to have property insurance, and of course it's always advisable. But if you buy new properties, then in most developers will put it as obligatory that at least for the first few years the property has to be insured. And of course you have utilities like electricity, water, internet, etc., etc. You have property management fees if you are renting it, etc. Income tax on rental property, maintenance and repairs, and in some cases if your homeowner association is strong and every project has to have the property association committee, then there is some percentage payable to them as well. Okay, and just to give you an idea what are the current rates, and again, on these slides we give you only a guideline because every property is different, but just like to understand the range, you can use these figures as an example. Okay, let's move to the taxes. Excellent taxes. Zero tax on passive income for non-domicile. Again, it's a huge story, so I will only show this because I won't, and we don't have much time. 0% property tax, 0% inheritance tax, only 5% pension tax, and for companies, 12.5% corporate tax. Now, let's do quickly I think that will be the last block about residency. So, British passport holders, how can they stay longer than actually 90 days, etc.? Taxes, relocation, retirement. Okay, so in Cyprus, like in all the EU countries, there is a definition. There are Cypriots, EU citizens, and non-EU. Everyone who is citizen of the country that is non-EU is considered as the third country nationals, and they need to follow different immigration rules. They cannot stay in Cyprus more than 90 days out of 180 days unless they get their immigration permit. And in Cyprus, we have several types. The one very popular one is the permanent residency by investment, when you can get the permanent residency that grants you and your husband and wife and your children up to the age of 25 opportunity to live and stay as much as you want. So this is permanent residency that you do not need to renew. For that one, you need to invest at least 300,000 plus VAT, and there are different views. There is also temporary. If you are European citizens, then it's a different thing. You just need to register and get it's so-called yellow slip, which gives you opportunity to live and work freely in Cyprus as long as you want to. But you need to register within 4 months of entering the Republic. There is also permanent residency category F, which is not connected to the purchase of property, but we are using it just because it still exists in legislation. But in practice, no permits of this category have been issued for several years, and there are talks that it will be amended. And of course, there is temporary residence as well, when you need to prove that you have income, that you need to do medical examination, provide clean criminal record, and the difference is that the temporary residence is given you for a certain period of time, and then you need to renew it. Okay. And okay, can you tell me, do you have enough do you have strength to do another 10 minutes? Let me see. Okay, so thank you, and I'll cover the last one. So let's talk about the real estate market. What is the minimal price for investment property? This a lot depends on the region. In Cyprus, the same property, if you put it in different regions, will cost different money. At the moment, the current consensus is that the lowest price or the minimal entry point for investment property now is in Larnaca, in Famagusta, in certain areas of Nicosia, and certain areas of Paphos. Top areas under development, I would say there are no top areas. Every city has top areas, and I highly recommend you to request our webinar that we've done. We actually again did something creative, and we did interactive webinar with our experts doing live showing of the properties from different areas of Cyprus. Every area has very distinguished characteristics, and we as experts, we can already feel like which area will be better suited for the requirements, for the budgets, for the families, for the desires of the each individual investors. And we can advise, like I can show you some slides. I will not go there because it's lots of space, but we even prepared, we say that, let's say Paphos area is for you if you want to avoid the hectic life. Or let's say if we're talking about Limassol, here it will be if you want really active but safe lifestyle. So each area has their unique characteristics and unique features. Very good thing. Yield tendencies in different areas of Cyprus, short-term rental yields. Funny enough, the rental yields across Cyprus, if you invest properly, are more or less the same. We are talking almost everywhere about 4-5% return on your rental income per year. The difference is how much you invest and what type of property you will get. Because let's say in Limassol, there is huge demand, and there are beautiful, amazing properties that bring very high rent. But the purchasing price of these properties is also higher. So if we look only at the return on investment, it will be more or less the same. Again, very interesting instrument that we have, and we are we are very big believers in educating and in doing very transparent transactions. So we do a lot to make the to make Cyprus market open and clear. And every quarter we publish residential real estate statistics where we analyze what is happening. It's called insights, and we publish transactions or analysis of transactions from the land registry, where you can see how many units have been sold, what is the value of the units, what is the split between the budgets. So it actually gives you lots of understanding. So coming to the question, price increase during 2024 and an expected price level for 2024. Again, because Cyprus is a small market, and I believe in the wisdom of the market economy. I believe in demand and supply, and that this is the only thing that regulates the prices. So I believe that from what we see now, I do not see any drastic increases or any drastic drops of prices, because the demand is quite stable. It's not as high as in the previous 2 years, but the previous 2 years, the demand was caused by very difficult geopolitical situation, by wars in the world. So lots of people were moving in, and that's why the demand was quite high. The demand is still there because lots of people who moved in the beginning, they were only renting. Now they're looking into buying, but they are buying not in a rush decision. They're searching, they're checking. So my and our company outlook for this year is that it will be quite stable, but with the normal price increases. Because if we're talking about new properties, you need to understand that this is the whole model of new development, that when developer is launching the property, the prices are at its bottom. The prices are very low, and then they are going higher. So roughly, when you are buying in Cyprus, when you're buying new properties, from the first announcement or pre-sales, we can consider about 15-20% growth in prices for that particular development. About the economic growth of Cyprus in the coming 5-10 years, it's a very long time, but I'm very optimistic. But again, guys, note, I'm generally a very optimistic person, but if we look at the macroeconomic situation, and if we look at Cyprus in general, GDP is growing higher than the rest of European countries. There are the country is doing lots of efforts actually, country has a strategic plan. I hope that they will do it, but they're doing lots of steps to bring more businesses, to bring end users to Cyprus, to increase the working population. That's why there are so many companies moving. Cyprus is becoming proper tech island, with startups, with investment funds, with financial companies, with IT companies. So all of these industries, they become part of economic landscape. They pay taxes and they participate in the growth of the country. So I believe that the future is bright. Okay. And now I think, because yes, I think that I think there were more questions than we expected, and because it's so interesting and so wonderful, I tried to cover as much as possible. So my apologies if it's took too much. So before we complete, I would really like to invite you to, in a way, to engage with us, to use our knowledge to help you understand if Cyprus is for you or if it's not for you. And the first step to work with our company is to arrange a personal online consultation with our property experts. We speak 12 languages, so we will be happy to discuss with you what are your goals. Is Cyprus suitable for you? What are the specifics? We will help you to prepare for the trip. We can do online viewing, make the whole experience very pleasant, but most important, provide you our expertise. We always work based on 4 pillars. It's our expertise, our efficiency, our ethics, and our style. And to complete, I also would say that if you would like to find out more, we'll be very happy to share with you our bonus resources. We have advanced webinars, which were by invitation only, but I will be happy to share with you about VAT, about navigating additional costs, KYC procedures, early bird investment strategy, and the general webinar for the regions of Cyprus. And I think here I will invite you to book your free consultation. I want to share my thank you that you stayed with me during this long webinar. If there are some questions that we haven't answered, we will check the chat history and promise that we will answer them. And I just want to say big thank you and invite you to visit our amazing island and visit our amazing team, even if it's just for coffee. Thank you very much. Thank you.